immediate go forward for the Sharks. More and over.
Okay, Zels, we took you out your cage. Over the weekend, we took you into a futuristic geographical spot. You didn't know if you were going into the future, if you were seeing relics of the past. You knew this place as Port Elizabeth, but you'd never been there. It is Glasgow. And I've got that on, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Tell me about your 23-hour experience, because we left Cape Town. We'd have left home at 11 o'clock, and we were on Saturday, we were home at 10 o'clock. The Storm was at 5 league points, and they're topping the Investec Champions Cup pool. But tell me about your experience from the Wimpy to the plane to the Nelson Mandela Bay Stadium, back to the Marine Hotel, to Panarotti's, back to the hotel.
Mate, you're dropping all the
to
names.
the Uber.
This show is sponsored by all of the above. Mate, the Wimpy was great. We had a great chat. Good burger, mate. PE was interesting, I'll say that. I think if you want to shoot a horror film, it is a great, wide, sprawling set of abandoned buildings, rundown buildings, mate. I don't know when those. Yeah, that was just wild. It was good. Look, the people were great, and the weather was good, and the place is beautiful. But just, I think the ratio of buildings to people in that town is about 10 to 1. I don't know where everybody was. We were told you got the last room or rooms in the hotel, that chock-a-block. But when we got there, we drive around the streets. It's just maybe they're just nocturnal in PE, mate. Maybe they only come out at night, because we did see people at night.
No, it was going off, and obviously they got some beautiful suburbia areas. But we went straight from, it's now Chief Davie Stuurman Airport, International Airport, no longer PE Airport. We went straight to the ground, and it took us longer to wait for an Uber than it did to actually get to the ground. And then when we got to the ground, it took us longer to get into the stadium and to the media box than the flight basically took us. But we got in there at 5 to 3. But I loved watching your face, because for those who haven't been there, when you go from the airport to the Nelson Mandela Bay Stadium, you basically have to go into Mad Max territory. It's just derelict buildings, the old part of PE. There's nothing going on there.
Not even roads,
You
mate.
don't even know. It's like potholes and roads and that kind of stuff. And Zels' eyes were hilarious, just watching him wonder where the stadium is that he's seen on tele, and then coming back. The Investec ladies very kind enough to give us a lift back to the hotel. Zels saw the sea, then he saw some grass, then he saw the boardwalk, and he saw some hotels, and he thought he was back in 2025. But in that initial phase, you must have thought, are we going to watch the Stormers or the Bulls?
What year are we in? No, exactly, mate. And something about that runway, mate. It's probably the shortest runway I've ever seen, mate.
Yeah, also the widest.
We came in sideways.
Stormers won. They are your team. They were expected to win. La Rochelle had sent a youthful team, a couple of oldies. You can't call Dylan Lates under 20 anymore.
Oh, it was great to see Leggett again, eh? Running
And he hasn't lost his pace.
Yeah, no, he's got a
He's putting some great tackles. One tackle on the speedster, Dylan Mart.
Yeah.
Try-saving tackle, throwing his body around. So La Rochelle has certainly got their money's worth with the acquisition of Dylan Lates a few years ago.
Yeah.
La Rochelle were never going to threaten anything. They were brave, but they were outclassed. Your impressions of that opening 15 minutes, where it should have been 24-0. I saw you tap dancing next to me. I saw Shimmy at the back on one leg tap dancing as well. That was a stunning opening stanza. We'll get to what happened post that.
Yeah. Look, I was halfway down the stands there ready to streak. For me, that opening 10 minutes was as pretty much as close to perfect rugby as you can get. It was just like watching a chess match. They just picked them off, set them up, landed their punches, scored great tries. It was absolutely stunning. So I really, really enjoyed that. Things didn't stay that way, but you got a glimpse of what this team can do when it clicks, and just how effective that plan is in terms of the way they play. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. And Sasha, I mean, mate, you've been around the world. You've been watching this game for 150 years. I've been watching it for slightly less. But there are moments in that first 10, 15 minutes, there are moments in that game where you and I looked at each other and we were like, I mean, this oak is doing some ridiculous things out there. The level of class is something to behold.
It is, and there were 17,000. So thanks for that, who came out, paid their money to watch the Sasha show, watch the Stormers. TV doesn't do justice to what he was doing on that field, because the television doesn't show you width. TV follows the player and then it follows the ball. It doesn't follow, the cameras don't show you off the ball.
Yeah.
Just the vision that there is. But also the way he takes the ball. He takes it on the run, but he could be standing still. He does it with such ease. He glides. His explosiveness, his understanding of his explosiveness to not panic in who he's sizing up to beat either on the inside or the outside. And then that opening try in the first few minutes, the way he took that ball on the run, he gave himself 5 offload options. He gave himself the option to actually put on the afterburners and go himself, and then to put that kick through running at that pace, and to put it on the ticker that the winner just had to kick it forward once and score was just incredible rugby skill. And the closest I've ever seen to him would be a Dan Carter. We go back to the Dan Carter that played the British and Irish Lions in 2005. But not even Dan Carter had that explosiveness on the ball that he has. And he is a gem. Yeah.
But with Dan Carter, like Dan Carter, obviously the greatest fly-off in professional rugby history. And he was outstanding, okay? But he was a sniper. He was like surgical. I mean, there were moments where he did things that are sort of maverick, off-script, explosive, but a lot of it was just like, when he kicked the ball, the outcome was just mind-boggling. He constantly hit the mark. He was like a darts guy. He hit the bullseye. But there's something about the way Sasha plays the game versus the rest of the fly halves. It's a bit like, I suppose, Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones in Men in Black. I mean, Will Smith says, the difference between you and me is I make the suit look good. And in a way, that's kind of what Sasha's about. There's a suave about the way that he pulls the stuff off. You can't see it coming. The other guys, it's almost like they knew they were going to do this before they got the ball. But with Sasha, you can almost see it's a reactionary thing. At least it looks like that. And just the quality of his execution and all this stuff. I think on that kick, I don't even know if he caught that ball. He kind of he palmed it onto his foot and banged it perfectly for Dylan Mart. It was insane.
It was incredible. I mean, you look at his contribution in the game. It was a tricky wind at the Nelson Mandela Bay. He kicked 4 from 7. It's not the easiest ground to kick at. But speaking to a few people afterwards, there seems to be this reluctance to just acknowledge how good this kid is. And it's like, whoa, expected more of Sasha. What more did you expect of him to basically play on his own?
Yeah.
If you look at the primary 4 elements, when we look at stats, and you're a crunch, you're the number cruncher. But top meters, Sasha 90, Mart the winner 81, Gelan 54, the fullback, Kobus Reiner 54, and then brilliantly, Paul de Villiers 47. He's your fetching, your scavenger, your flanker. Defenders beaten, Sasha 7, Kobus Reiner 4, Paul de Villiers 4. Kicks in play, Sasha 11, Kobus 6. Top carry, Sasha 13. Kobus 10, Paul de Villiers 9, top tackles, Paul de Villiers 16. So as well as it was a team collective and no one plays without a pack, just on the eye you could see that it was a Kobus Reiner, Sasha, Feinberg, Umgomazulu show and a Paul de Villiers show.
Totally.
I mean, and the stats carry, and the stats bear that out.
Yeah, I mean, it is a team sport, obviously, but that goes for multiple different codes, right? Where we talk about Pele, we talk about Maradona, we talk about Messi. Not because they win games on their own in every sense. They obviously are part of a team, but within that team environment, these are standout guys that are game changers that alter the course of matches in a way that other guys haven't been able to do with the same level of consistency or impact. And I mean, Sasha, that's what he does. So it's amazing to see. And I think some of the pieces that they've added, like Kobus Reiner joining the Stormers, you could see his speed, the impact of that speed in that game. Just his closing speed at 9 and his ability to burst away and set things up again obviously led to a try. So it was a good game to watch. It was a roller coaster, but there were moments of absolute ecstasy in that game in terms of the way the Stormers played.
Well, Feinberg, Mngomazulu, Reiner, that 9-10 is going to be critical to how the Stormers progress in the Investec Champions Cup and also how they go in the Vodacom United Rugby Championship. But if I look at the team, the team play, the ratio of kicking to passing as well, even in a game that could have got very loose, and at times it seemed to get loose, 88 passes or 84 passes to 22 kicks. That's less than a 4-to-1 ratio. That's kind of what you're looking at, aren't you, in terms of balance?
Yeah. In terms of the Stormers, definitely that's very much the sort of way they want to play. There are other teams that their ratio is very different to that. But yeah, I think that is good balance.
And then 29 defenders beaten, 20 line breaks. Again, it just shows the dominance. That could have been a 60, 70-point win, which I don't think would have done them any good going into the Lions this weekend. It's a kind of game, they got the 5 league points, lots to work on. There were times where they kind of lost shape, lost a bit of concentration. A very, very difficult game to play. There were so many stops, TMO involvements, water breaks, referee speaking to their TMO, players giving the referee advice. They had like 15 La Rochelle TMOs on the field as well. Somehow, though, the Storm was 70 missed tackles in 148, mate. That's not a bad ratio.
Yeah.
Normally would be happy with that.
Yeah.
The kind of tries, it was a good driving maul try that La Rochelle scored. But the other two came from just some crazy, crazy moments where it looked a bit helter-skelter. But the cool thing was you never got the sense, and I know they were kids from La Rochelle, but the moment they got back into within a striking distance, the Stormers scored immediately just to kind of calm any nerves that there may have been there. So they got a lot of critique afterwards from people that I spoke to saying they should have won. They should have won handsomely.
They did.
This was the kids. But 42-21, speaking to Ron Nell afterwards, and he said, I've been around long enough to know you appreciate one thing, it's the W. And take the win. Don't be too down on yourself. And the areas they know they've got to improve on, they will. They 8 from 8 in all competitions. The last time they played in Cape Town was in October. When they opened the URC championship against Leinster, and then I played the next week against some Welsh club. Who was it?
Ospreys.
The Ospreys, and they won well.
Yeah.
And they've been on the road ever since. And I mean, yes, it's technically a home game this last weekend, but it wasn't. It was an hour and 50-minute flight away from home.
Yeah.
So they're back in Cape Town, and they'll be back in Cape Town in the Investec Champions Cup for the first time on the weekend of the 17th of January, and that could be very decisive against Leicester, because that could decide whether they get a last 16 home playoff.
Yes.
And we've seen, as much as the crowds haven't been around, in South Africa especially, for these pool games, when the Stormers went through in the first season of Investec Champions Cup and they hosted Harlequins, they got 35,000 people at the game, which they won. When they played La Rochelle, they got over 30,000 people. It was later in the year. The kind of festivities were gone. People weren't exhausted or saturated from too much rugby. It is a killer of a time in terms of the competition, and something that the sponsors will be asking the tournament organizers to look at. How do they bypass this period of time just before Christmas? How do they bypass teams not sending weakened teams, lambs to the slaughter, because it does an injustice to just what this competition is. It is the greatest club competition in the world, the Investec Champions Cup, when it comes to playoffs, when it comes to strength against strength. And we saw that this weekend on the 3 games out of the 12 where you had top teams picking their best teams.
Yep.
You had Toulouse, 6-time champions, going to Scotland to play Glasgow, 21-0 up at halftime, with a big win behind them. They turned an incredible night for Glasgow. Franco Smith's Glasgow, 28-21. That's a game everyone will remember for a long, long time. Then Leicester were brave for an hour, hosting Leinster, who sent their big guns, 23-15. And then Johan van Kraan's Bath, he sent his big guns to Toulon. Stade Mayol, 44-35 or 45-34, one of the two. But that's what Investec Champions Cup rugby is about. Saracens will rue that they didn't put 2 or 3 more of their big game players in. They may have got something against the Sharks in Durban.
Yep.
But that's why people rave about this competition, when it is strength against strength. And I think that's why the Stormers did it so well in the way they've grown their depth to be able to send a team to Bayonne, get a win, and then play their big guns here in preparation for another competitions game. And how they're going to balance the mix in January is going to be very interesting, because the commercial value to getting a last 16 home playoff and a last 8 home playoff, and also where it puts you in a global standing, that's not to be scoffed at.
No,
so there's been a lot of negativity around the Champions Cup because of the mismatches in Europe and down here, but because of the time of the year as well. But when the right teams play each other, it's riveting. And we saw that with the playoffs last year. We saw that with incredible finals in the last couple of years.
Spot on.
And I saw that Glasgow against Toulouse. Wow, that was like test match rugby. To see that Toulouse side so bewildered and battered in the last 10 minutes, the surge of that home crowd. In Champions League, they call it in Europe, it's like those big European nights. You got a sense that was rugby's big European night. And that's what this competition is about. But it is a struggle. I mean, you look at 7,500 at Loftus. The Stormers playing out not at their home city, still managing to get 17,000.
Insane.
When the Sharks do appoint a new coach, they've got a good team in town, the guards come down and they just thunder and rain. So it wasn't ideal in Durban for that match either. So I just think the biggest thing from a South African point of view is the Sharks are alive in this competition. The Stormers are very much alive. And there's the possibility of at least 2 South African teams in that last 16, hopefully one of them in Cape Town with a home playoff.
No, absolutely. And I think, you spoke about weakened teams playing full-strength teams and the impact of that in some of the games. And I just wonder how much of that isn't down to growing pains in this competition because you've added a new hemisphere to it. And that comes with logistical implications. And I think one thing the Stormers are probably benefiting from now is the past couple of seasons spent building capacity. So they have depth. So even though they may send a player to a game that may not be your blockbuster top billing guy, he's still capable and they're getting the results. And I think between the teams in Europe and the teams in South Africa, everybody is tooling up for the demands of this multi-hemisphere cup competition. And in time, I think you're going to find that the whole thing of sending a B team is probably going to wither away because the quality of the average player in the squad is going to have gone up. The investment that La Rochelle made this week in giving youngsters a few minutes, some players from the La Rochelle Academy, I think you're going to see the fruits of that in the future when those guys at 20, 21, 22 are more than capable of coming to South Africa and potentially winning a game in a team that isn't at full strength. So I think we're getting to the space where this is just part of the sort of initiation, the induction into a multi-hemisphere Champions Cup, and I'm pretty sure it's going to change over time, and the fans will come with it. I think people are learning who these teams are, and once they become more familiar with the names and faces, I think the crowds will grow as well.
I was saying, Charles Crowell sent me a very interesting story that was in the Irish papers. It's like the whole build of the 30 years of EPCR rugby and the hosting of the first final Toulouse Edge Cardiff in 1996 is very similar to the Rugby World Cup 1987 and where it was. And that we think of the Champions Cup, we really think in South Africa of the last decade because we had so many South Africans playing for the likes of Saracens, playing for Toulon. Yeah. We know how great that Toulouse side has always been. They talked about, speak about the Crusaders and the vintage Crusaders and the old vintage Auckland amateur side, and then going into the early years of Super Rugby, Auckland Blues. The old Leicester side. Leinster only came through by 2009, 2010. In the last 15 years. They were a fortunate invite into the first competition in 96. So you look at those first 5-6 years, and it's exactly what you said. We're right back there again with an expansion of the tournament and a new country in it that happens to be in another hemisphere,
Correct.
Which they've never had before. So I understand the critique, but I also want to say this is a great tournament when you see who plays in it and those top teams, and we potentially with the Stormers, and I'll never give up on the Sharks and Bulls in terms of their quality over the next 2 or 3 years and what they can build, but the potential of those teams to go through, and it just needs a South African team to be in an Investec Champions Cup final or to win it for this country's people to see, okay, now we understand what this competition is about.
Yeah.
It's like you've got to go and win a World Cup to know what it is to win a World Cup. So to the guys in Ireland who say Six Nations is bigger, it's not. Once you get past the quarterfinals and you go on, it is worth something.
Yeah.
It's like the EPCR Challenge Cup. It means something, and it's only ever means something when you win it. It's a bit like you playing soccer to win the Champions League, but if you don't, you play Europa. Then they always have that club final Europa champions against Champions League, and sometimes Europa champions win that one off as well.
Beautiful.
But the moment you get into Europa, it's like we've got a title in Europe. So there is a prestige around the champions, around the EPCR Challenge Cup if you fall out.
Definitely.
And there I see there's more strength against strength. So it's also something to consider is, is the future 16 teams and not 24? Is it less teams in the EPCR Challenge Cup as well, so you don't get the mismatches? You can have potentially 3 strong pool rounds and then straight into a quarterfinal, a semi-final, and final. And it's jeopardy all the time. I mean, these are things they're going to obviously look at moving forward to sustain the credibility of the competition and to ensure that it remains the top club competition in the world. But again, the thought of Toulouse coming here with their full-strength side and playing a full-strength Stormers, vice versa. I saw when Bordeaux went to Pretoria with their full-strength side, laden with internationals, 33-22 down, the way they came back, clinically came back. If you love rugby, it was just a cool game to watch, to see that quality. So it just pleases me no end that Tobo, Salman Murat and the boys are 8 from 8 for the season, but 2 from 2 in the Investec Champions Cup. And the Stormers have shown an appetite and a desire. And Dobbo said it at the press conference afterwards.
Yeah.
We take this competition seriously. We want to do well in it. We know the history of it, and we want to add to that history and be a part of that new chapter. Now, he's the only South African coach that has said that in competition. Sadly, you're not getting it from the rest. The Sharks sent kids to the slaughter in Toulouse, trusted their oldies, led by Andre the Giant, to do something here. They're still alive. And the Bulls, unfortunately, they've just been a shambles.
Yeah, look, if you're a Sharks fan and a Bulls fan and you're still in the show, congratulations. We are very, very grateful that you're here. Talking about the Sharks, mate, I thought that was an outstanding win. You picked it. I picked it. I'm so chuffed for JP Peterson that he got the W. And what a gutsy way to go and win that game. Saracens, no team to sniff at. Also, quality outfit, obviously. Conditions horrendous. They would have taken some problem solving. And just the way the guys stood up. Guys like Ethan Hooker that we've spoken about before. Massive performance at outside centre. Sia came through with the early try there. And obviously Andre the Giant, big in all respects. So very, very happy for the Sharks to get that W. I think they are now 5th in their pool. And so are the Bulls. They're both tracking to make it to the Challenge Cup playoffs as things stand. Hopefully they reverse that and get back up into the contention for the Champions Cup playoffs. But like I say, very chuffed for JP to get off to a good start. And hopefully this is the beginning of something new in Derbs.
Well, Andre the Giant, made captain, 100th match, also led the stats in 4 of the primary categories. And I mean, there's stats, but they do give you a picture of a contribution from a player. Top carries 11, top tackles, 29 meters, second most made. Defenders beaten 5. Ethan Hooker beat 4. So when your midfield is beating 9 defenders in a very tight game, in very poor weather conditions, there's something going on there. All credit to George Whitehead, journeyman who's been around. He's doing the basics right. He's playing well. Keo led from the front in terms of emptied the tank on 51 minutes.
Yeah.
It was a brave performance, but you just saw a team looking like they were playing for something, and we haven't seen that from the Sharks for a while.
Well said.
And it just was wonderful for JP Peterson. He's a great Springbok, one of the unsung heroes of the 2007 World Cup win. Remember his try-saving tackle against Fiji at 27-20 when it could have got very different had Fiji scored there in Marseille. It's fortunate to be there that day. And again, he's functional and rugby emotional intelligence to be in a position to make that tackle. Eddie Jones always says a lot of winners would not have made that tackle because they wouldn't have read the play, and you would never have blamed them because you would have asked, how could he have got there?
Yeah.
He knew he could get there. He knew he had to get there, and he made the tackle. But I just thought it was great reward for the Sharks, great reward for a young coach coming in. Nothing would have been worse than them getting a beating. They are still alive in this competition.
Yep.
They get 2 from 4. They can still be in the last 16. They'll then probably have to play away from home.
Okay.
That's where the Stormers are primed to play at home.
Yeah.
Especially playing Leicester in their final game on the weekend of the 17th of January. Leicester are 0 from 2. They may can it and say, our focus is the Gallagher Prem.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's, again, that thing that Dobber's got to sit with in the new year. It's not something for the next fortnight. Does he send as strong as possible team to Harlequins and get the win and back a mix and match combination home to beat potentially an understrength Leicester side and get 4 from 4 and set himself up and set the Stormers up for a home last 16, but with those league points, potentially a home last 8.
Yeah.
And that would be incredible to see a side like the Stormers go through to a semi-final. And then the Sharks, if they are improving and gelling, and with that quality of Springbok they have in the squad, you'd have to back them to get on a plane and go somewhere and actually surprise someone.
So, I mean, this is, in terms of the quality of the squad, that's a Sharks team that can punk anybody on the day. And, going into last week's match, we said these Oaks have got their backs to the wall. I think I said it, they're at a T-junction, not a crossroads. They have to respond, and they did respond. And that kind of talks to the danger of this side. The Sharks have got teeth. They've got Oaks that can play. Bongi and Manabi is starting to look like he's got a bit of an appetite again. And Sia's obviously on a roll. They've got some weapons around the field there. Those guys can turn it on. It's just about them doing it. They haven't done it to date. Once they click, they are a problem. So the Sharks can be a real force in this competition if they get it together.
Talk to me about the Bulls, because we put so much faith in them. And yesterday's show, for me, was probably the most diabolical that I've seen. 7-5 after 32 minutes. Somehow they were still in the game. It looked like they didn't want to be in the game. And just everything that could go wrong did go wrong. And Northampton didn't play particularly well to get a 50-5 win against the mighty Bulls.
No, they didn't, mate. And, people look at it, they say over the last 2 games, the Bulls have conceded almost 100 points, and the defense is a major issue. But what I said right at the beginning was, Akkers is going to come in. I think he's going to back the attack to kind of boost morale, get the excitement levels up, try and replicate things that he's done probably at the Lions in the past, get them scoring some points, and he'll take winning in a shootout over sort of risk management and winning a game 12-9. And initially that worked, but what I think for me, what was more disappointing than the high-scoring loss was the low-scoring loss. The Bulls scored 5 points. So that attack that they've invested in is, as much as the defense isn't coming to the party, they are not breaking teams down either. And I think that would also obviously be an area of concern for him. The Bulls need a rethink and a light reboot, a control-alt-delete on this thing for this season. I think what surprised me is how long it's taken Akkers to react to what's happening there. And that's my view from the outside looking in. Maybe he's made major decisions behind the scene. I don't know. But there's clearly something fundamental wrong there in terms of the inability to systematically contain teams on defense. Looks to me like there's holes all over the park. And then the attack is starting to fade now as well. And that squad that he's got there is a proper squad. They've got some real players in it. He's had to switch between the Springboks and the sort of journeymen who've got the most minutes under the belt, but he didn't get the reaction that he wanted this weekend, and I'm not really sure where that leaves him now. In a way, he's kind of painted himself in a corner, because last week it was the Boks who weren't carrying their weight, and this week the guys who've got the minutes also just disappeared. So a lot of things I think need to change there. That defense needs to get fixed in a hurry. But the good news is, once they put the pieces in place, they've got the squad to actually, if they give them some bullets, they can shoot. These guys can shoot. So, pulling for them. I hope the Bulls turn things around and get back in the saddle.
Okay, so you've got Andries Becker and Chris Rousseau, same assistant coach that Jake had, and you've got fundamentally the same squad that Jake had. Now, Jake got them to 3 URC finals, got them into playoff positions in the Champions Cup, kind of sent weakened teams because he wanted to focus on winning. The URC got the home final, was ahead at halftime, and basically they imploded, and went to Dublin last year on a bit of a high, feeling they could beat Leinster and were kind of out of it within 20 minutes. Now, when Jose Mourinho, for those who follow soccer, was at Man United, and he ended second to Man City, and then they fired him, and he still says today it's one of his great achievements, because we see what's happened to Man United since he left over the last 12, 13 years. They've been nowhere. Does this shed some light on Jake that maybe it wasn't all doom and gloom while he was there? Or is it a case that those who are still there need to take a lot more accountability for what's happening? Yeah. Or do we have to just accept that Akkers will do the big clean out at the end of the season? Where do you see?
Yeah, I don't think they should wait till the end of the season. This is too good a squad. You just don't have that time in pro sport to kind of resign yourself to an indifferent rest of the season and to be battling for no reason at all. Like I said at the time when Jake's head was on the chopping block, I don't think firing Jake is the answer per se. I think they need to do a reshuffle of that management team and maybe head in a new direction in a few places there. I said, if anything, I would have promoted Andries Becker and had him more involved, because I thought I thought they were good in his departments, but this is just me talking from the outside. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes there. Maybe everything's great. I just think they're in a tricky space because you've had the players kind of rally to get rid of the last coach. You've got the new coach in with a lot of positive sentiment around him, and the results have gone down. And I think that puts everybody kind of in the crosshairs. And ultimately, the only thing that rectifies that is on-field performance. So who can you bring in and what can you do? What can you change to rectify what happens on the field? If you take control of the scoreboard, a lot of these issues go away. So how do you do that?
Well, how do you do that?
Well, I mean, for me, I think you have to fix the defense. So the first thing I'll be looking at is getting in somebody who can ratchet up that defense, make them a tough team to beat, tough team to score against. Once you're in that position with the quality of game breakers they've got in that side, I think the Bulls will immediately be contenders again. You've got a solid scrum and a solid defense, you're in a good space. The Bulls have got some great players. I'm not sure they're always picking the best guys in the best places. For me, a guy like Rocketman, Trevino Jacobs, is a fantastic north-south physical runner with great burst for an Oak who's sort of as compact and dense as he is. For me, he's a bit like Ngani Laumape, that inside centre from the Canes a few years ago. I would love to see that guy right next to the ball in the heat of contact. I think that's where he's most dangerous. He likes to bang it. Having him on the edge kind of tap dancing under high balls, I don't think is maybe his strength. And then, Devin Williams needs more opportunities to counterattack. He's an explosive weapon. In Ambrose Papiru, you've got pure speed. You've got a lot of guys in and around there that can do damage. Davy Creel's another one. I'm not sure how many more kilometers the likes of Aka van der Merwe and maybe Harry Foster have got in their legs. And that's why I was so excited about Cheswell Jooste, who's unfortunately injured at the moment, because I think between him, Ambrose, and Devon, you've got game-breaking speed there. And they do, I mean, aside from the headline guys that you know in the pack, the Cam Honeycombs, the Ulrich Lowe's, the Marcel Kutsiers, the Ruan Nokias, Alu Chakweni, the guy who got yellow carded this weekend for a silly infringement, for me is a real, I mean, I love that guy. I watched him tackle. He is a monster in contact. So they've got, and I haven't even mentioned Wilco Low, Gerard Steenekamp. They've got so many.
Young Grobler.
Yeah, exactly. Ludwig. They've got so many good players in and around that team. I think they just need to get simpler, more direct, go forward and back that up with some solid defense that makes it difficult to beat them. And then you're back in the game. Then you can start adding all the bells and whistles.
Does it take them to get pumped in Durban this weekend for those changes to come? And I know we'll chat later in the week about the big South African derbies in the URC. But when Jake looked so disillusioned after the final and said, if I could bring Ache Snyman on in a final, I'd also win it. If I could have their team, I'd win it. And he just threw his players under the bus, and that was the end. But if anything, he fired himself. Now I look at Aches, so having basically had a one-on-one with him in Pretoria after they lost to Bordeaux, and then watching his interview, he just looked battered and beaten, and he looked like a dad who's so disappointed in the actions of his kids. I just felt like Jake was belligerent. He was annoyed and angry with his kids. This guy's so disappointed in his kids. It's like he had put so much faith in them.
Yeah.
And we know what he did with the Lions. We know what he did with Gloucester.
I think that's the problem, mate.
That's what I just can't put my finger on is it's not a Johan Ackerman type performances, because the one thing Akker's teams do, they play with enthusiasm, they play with ticker, and if their defensive structures have not been good in the beginning, like at the Lions, where they did concede points, those players scrambled and they worked hard to make up for the missed tackle. And the one thing you can't coach a player is to scramble on defense. He's got to want to do that. And we see that with the great teams. We see that with the Springboks. We see that with the Stormers. When they do miss a tackle, someone's back in, taking off to kind of make up for his colleague or his teammate or his friend's kind of poor judgment or just poor missed one-on-one tackle.
I think that Lions' job is to the Bulls' job what probably PE is to Cape Town. Like, it's just, they're not even in the same ballpark. That Lions' job, there's no expectation of victory. If you don't end last, you've done well. At least it was like that when Uckers was there. And you're working with a bunch of guys who are on nobody's shopping list, right? And so you're going to turn these guys into on-the-radar players. And they are hanging on every word you say. And so there's very much a, guys, let's get in this boat together. Let's all row in the same direction and good things can happen for all of us. That's very different than going to a team that's got some of the world's best players in it, whose attention may primarily be on what they're doing for the international team, and who are meshing with guys who in their mind are probably relegated and consigned to second and third string roles because of these superstars. And the management around those players, they've got to be rested. Oh no, he's away on Bok duty now, so now you can step in. That's a whole different ball game. At the Bulls, that's a headline team. Expectation is victory. They just fired the guy that got them to multiple finals. I mean, it's a completely different ball game. And then if you go in there with a sort of kumbaya, let's just sit down and chat with the incumbents and see what they think is the best way forward, you're going to get this kind of soup result. Whereas it may not be the most popular thing, and Jake would probably tell you there's, people are pretty black and white when it comes to Jake. They either love him or they don't dig him. So that's because he is a winner by nature in terms of the way that he goes out to win. He doesn't care necessarily how many bridges have to be burnt on the way there. And I think Akkers maybe needs a little bit more of that to be successful in this job. If he ends up back at the Lions, I think what he was doing then could work again. But you can't bring that to this Bulls team. I think he's got to be a bit more ruthless. He's got to be a bit stronger on what his vision is and bring in the pieces that can deliver that.
And also, he needs players to kind of want to be there, players to stand up, and he needs his big names to kind of lead from the front. And I look at a guy like Andre Pollard, and just an incredible signing for them. Started his career there, will finish his career there. He is so critical to any form of Bulls comeback. But he was on tour with the Springboks for the best part of 6 weeks, played one game, didn't play their first game he was available, played against Bordeaux, didn't go on tour. So he's basically had 2 games in the last 2.5 months, and if it's resting protocols or because his wife, they've had their second child, then you take a guy like Kobus Reinach, a guy like Sasha, who Damian Willemse, they stayed after the Rugby Championship victory against Argentina at Twickenham. They went on tour with the Stormers. They played games for the Stormers. They then came home. They all went back on tour with the Springboks for 5 weeks, and then 2 of them went with the Stormers again, and then we're at the Nelson Mandela Bay Stadium again to kind of make their contribution. Then you feel, there are national resting protocols and that, but these are the guys who also want to play for their club and they want to be big for their club. And I mean, Kobus Reinach is an example, certainly 35, but he's playing with the enthusiasm, the energy levels of a guy who's 19 who just made his test debut. He's been the former Springboks come off, and he's a lesson in patience. 4 years at Northampton Saints, then Montpellier for 5 or 6 years, behind Faf de Klerk, then behind Jaden Hendrickse, then behind Grant Williams. And when his chance came, he's taken it and he's been outstanding. But for a guy to come here and immediately make that kind of impact, that tells the coaches they got their signing right.
No, big time.
Tells the owners they got something right with who they brought into the club culture.
Yeah.
And you look at the Sharks in a far greater way than the Bulls, but you just want to see those big names say, hang on a second, I want to play this game. I want to be the guy that takes a young team overseas. And actually if we can't win it, we're going to leave with respectability. And the growing pains are going to be we can actually compete with these guys.
But doesn't that talk to the whole next man up thing? And I'm not saying this is a key driver, right? I 100% believe that the culture and all of that plays its part, and also the personality of the player in question. But I'm just saying, if you're a big name player from the Springboks and you go back to your club and that club has been fielding the next man up and those guys have been performing. I mean, Yuri Mattia is the leading point scorer in the URC. So if you, Sasha, you come back to the club, I'm not saying Sasha's, thinks he has to fight for his job necessarily to win the 10 jersey. He's arguably the best flyer from the world at the moment. But Yuri Mattia is no slouch. If you go to the Sharks potentially, let's say you were the Springbok flyer, if you come back there, the whole team is kind of underperforming. There's less incentive to kind of say, hey, don't forget about me. I can also play this game and I can do it in this jersey as well, not just the green jersey. You get what I'm saying? Steph Ungerer, Dewald Duvenhagen, they've all done great things at 9 and 10 for the Stormers. Kirby and Sasha come back and they come into a winning team that's got rolling high on confidence and where everybody's a contributor. And I think that's the key. That's why you have to turn things around at the Bulls and the Sharks, is you got to start creating that, keeping everybody on their toes a bit. It's not like, well, I'm going to start this week because everybody else is not in form. It's like I'm going to earn this jersey, keep this jersey, and we're going to win games. I think it's just a mind shift.
Yeah, I mean, and it's not just the Investec Champions Cup, and That now takes a break. It starts again on the weekend of the 9th, 10th, and 11th of January 2026. But if you go to the EPCR homepage, it is just fantastic content there. Every player's stats are there from the 2 rounds. Every team stats are there. There's ticket prizes up for the finals in north of Spain, weekend of the 22nd, 23rd of May. There's match predictions. So it's a cool site to go on, and all the highlights are there in terms of video and all that. EPCR Challenge Cup, the same. We talk about the Sharks going away from home in the Premier competition, the way the Bulls have performed. But then equally, you look at the Lions dropping a game to Benetton. You know, they draw playing Benetton at home and then going away to play Newcastle's Red Bulls or Red Bull Newcastle. They should have, in their minds, thought those are 2 wins they can get. Frans Steyn said it with the Cheetahs. They should have felt that they had the capacity to beat Stade Francais, and they were ahead at halftime. And this is their 3rd year they've made their base home in Netherlands, so it is like a home ground advantage to them. I was just so disappointed in how both those teams rolled over. The Cheetahs in the last 25 minutes, and the Lions never taking their game by the scruff of the neck, but controlling it for the best part of 60 minutes, but seem to be devoid of confidence against one of the poorer and most struggling teams in the Prem and in Europe.
Yeah, so for the Cheetahs, I'm always going to give them unlimited grace, because that must be a hell of a difficult to be running every single day, sweating, wanting to courts because you're redlining it, and you play whatever it is, 4 games a year. That must be difficult to stay motivated and to stay in form. You're just doing corporate stump, I suppose. I don't know. For the Lions, mates, I think the Lions are technically a very good team, but maybe in getting to this place where their ability to control the game has improved, they've lost some of their edge. They used to be a team that could cut you very quickly if you take your eye off the ball. They're struggling to put points on the board as much as they used to. So they probably just need to get back to that space where they can be clinical but also lethal on the transition. Like that balance is maybe a little bit off kilter at the moment. Still a very good team. Is a disappointing result for them in the way that it went. That Angelo David's punch situation, but accidental thing. I know it was 100% accidental. It's just funny to me how some guy can trip and fall into somebody and get suspended for 10 weeks, and another guy can be on camera punching someone in the head and they're unconscious.
From the back.
And it's a yellow card. The whole thing just doesn't make any sense to me. Whatever. And then flipping to the Cheetahs, man, I'm not sure if we're doing try of the week, but my try of the week came from that Cheetahs game. Jean-Andre Null scored in the corner from a breakout. It's a 100-meter try, mate. And it was Munir Hartzenberg who sparked that thing. He had a cracking game. A little chip from inside the 22, collected it out the back door. They raced out, breakout, and Jean-Andre Null scored in the corner, and I thought that was an absolutely superb try. So the Cheetahs have the ability again. I think it's just about game time for those guys. I'm not sure what the solution is there. But yeah, I hope something good can happen for them soon, because there are some quality players there, and obviously it's a team with great tradition.
Is that your Stecco?
That's my Stecco try,
The
mate.
Cheetahs win something.
The Cheetahs win something.
Cheetahs win something.
Jean-Andre Null,
was
Munir
gonna-
Hartzenberg, special mention, mate.
I was going to go with, from a South African perspective, one of a couple from the
Ethan Hooker
Stormers.
breaks the line.
I was going to go with one of, and then obviously the Ethan Hooker try.
Yeah.
But we all love the Cheetahs so much, the
Yes, we
Toyota
do,
Cheetahs.
mate.
We love Francie Steyn so much. If we can give them any form of encouragement,
They earned it, mate.
we've got to give them.
They earned this one.
The Zala Master has spoken. Zels has spoken and said it's the Cheetahs for the Stecco.
Yeah.
A power play, about sustainability. Let's hope they are about growth, and kind of that they aren't just about load shedding. Their lights do come on at some stage in the next 12 months. We need the Cheetahs to be playing
Yes,
good rugby
please.
and to be strong. Just one final look at the Investec Champions Cup. Bath, definitely there and thereabouts. Very competitive at the Stade Mayol to score 34 points, and they took their tea in there. So Jan Volkran, he's on the upward curve. He will definitely get into the playoffs. They had that good start at home as well. But Franco Smith, he's won the URC with Glasgow. There was talk that he would go and replace Gregor Townsend at Scotland. They said no, not for now. He's not in the Springbok mix. He's not in the setup. SA Rugby's made it clear. Rassie's the Coastal 2031 World Cup, and the successor will come out of Rassie's management team. So it is Glasgow for him for now, or another country, or Scotland. But in terms of his profile was that victory bigger than winning the URC, to beat a full-strength Toulouse at home in the Investec Champions Cup?
In a word, no. Mate, winning the URC, that is something else. That's a long campaign, collective effort. Maybe in the individual performance, you look at those 80 minutes, you say, maybe. I mean, obviously, beating Toulouse there is a real result. And the manner that they did it, they came back from the dead, mate, and beat them in the second half. Very good. I want to see Franco Smith get a serious team, a team with serious expectations and a budget. Because if he can do what he's doing with Glasgow and what he kind of did with the Cheetahs at a headline club, then he's a guy I think we should be looking at as a potential Bok coach in the future. So like Franco had come to the Bulls and he'd done what he's done with the Glasgow Warriors, we'd have a real contender in my eyes for that Bok job.
Are you saying that Franco may have a limitation, that he can take and
That's exactly what I'm saying.
he can take a side that there's no real expectation on them and make them look glorious, but if he got a Toulouse or he got a Leinster or an Informed Stormers as a succession plan, he may struggle with that expectation.
It's possible. I'm not saying I suspect he will. What I'm saying is that it is possible. We don't have an answer to that question. I am the best touch rugby player in my backyard, but when you take me down to Greenpoint, mate, I slip down the pecking order. So I think Franco has definitely done what he's done with this team, and it is excellent, and there's a workmanlikeness about this side, and they are tactically very clever. But I want to see Franco under the spotlight, having to talk to the media more, answer a lot more questions from stakeholders about why he isn't picking their son, all that sort of stuff, and see whether he can continue to deliver under that duress. Because then if he can, mate, then he's the real deal. So I hope that opportunity comes around soon.
All right, we're going to be talking Investec Champions Cup, the second weekend of January, and then the third weekend of January. And then the league stage will be complete. We'll know who the top 16 teams are in the competition. That's when it really, really kicks off. If you go to SA Rugby Magazine, the big behemoth, Zels used to operate and head up. Now Simon Borchardt does a fantastic job on it. You can get, if you sign up and you register your details, you get a free monthly Digimag, and you also go into the draw 100,000 Rand for one winner, and that will be announced at the end of June. If you're also talking bucks, you're talking legacy, the Legacy Can campaign, rally your squad with Castle Lager, and that's applicable to the rugby, to the cricket, to the soccer, the AFCON. There's 6 legacy cans, 130,000 Rand there. It's 130 years they've been around. The taste that has stood the test of time. What also stood the test of time this weekend was Zels. He survived 23 hours in the friendly and the windy city that wasn't Cape Town.
Oh, that's a wonderful score. Sasha that's a great. To the tail for Pepsi Buthelezi, an immediate go forward for the Sharks. Small and over.